Welcome once again. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has presented a 819.5 billion naira supplementary budget to the National Assembly. The budget, which is expected to be funded rather by domestic borrowings amid concerns of rising debt, now brings the budget deficit to 8.17 trillion naira. In a letter sent to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, the president raised the supplementary budget to address food security following devastating floods across the country, as well as repair damage to road infrastructure and the water sector. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari had on December 31st, 2021, signed the 2022 appropriation bill of 17.126 trillion naira into law after it was presented to him by his senior special assistant on National Assembly, Senator Babajide Omoworore, at the council chambers of the presidential villa in Abuja. Now, let's bring in financial analyst Gbolahan Olojede for more analysis on this. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Olojede.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
So, obviously not shocking, hearing of a supplementary budget, but let's start with the reason behind the supplementary budget. It's talking about floods and damage that's caused to infrastructure and some of all of that. Would you, see that as a good enough reason?
It's actually a very important reason. When the flooding happened, that was around September, I guess. I just look at just one product, maize, and you look at the maize belt, where the chunk of the maize that is produced in Nigeria is from, and you see that a lot of the states that were affected were also involved in this product. Now, there's an implication for that. Apart from the fact that it's one of the staples that we consume, more than 50% of the corn in Nigeria is not even consumed directly. It goes into feed milling. When you take that ingredient away from feed milling, it will have implication on feed generally. So your poultry, your other livestock and other are going to be affected. So there is a food security problem that is looming.
Yes.
And the government has a responsibility to intervene. It must intervene to stop that. Otherwise, it will be a disaster. The other part is that we have actually not been investing in what I would call water management. Although we have a ministry called Ministry of Water Resources, we have not been treating water as if it's a resource. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the middle belt of this country, and I saw how individuals were channeling the Niger into their farms indiscriminately. There's no control whatsoever. Anybody can go to any of the tributaries or anywhere you see Niger, just dig something and channel it into your farm. So we're not. When last did we build a proper dam in this country? In fact, apart from Niger is even lucky. I think Niger has about a couple of dams. I'm not sure that Benue has a single dam on it. So the investment has not been made. This year reminded us, if in case we forgot, that there are major investment in water management that we have not made for decades. And we must also go there. Roads were wiped out in that flooding. We should fix them. So there is a genuine case on hand for intervention. The other issues that will come is, there's additional dead body and all of that.
Yeah, and that's what I was just about getting into now, the 8.17 trillion deficit. And of course, the part where, of course, this 819 billion is likely going to be also financed through additional domestic borrowings.
Yes.
Which we've had numerous conversations about, but once again, we're back at it. The current administration is going to be out of here in a few months.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's more debt, more money that is going to be borrowed. Is this the new normal? And is this part, a problem?
I think the new government, the incoming government, has this, task cut out for it. Now, this is an additional announcement of impending debt.
Yeah.
There is already a huge one on the floor. It has the spirit to actually challenge its own team, so that there are no surprises about debt in Nigeria, and that is an advantage in a way for the incoming guy to say, look, I know we have this much debt external, we have this much internal, we have ways and means. Now we are incurring this additional one. Team, how are we going to deal with this matter? As a matter of fact, if he likes, he may decide not to go the way of borrowing. Or if we decide to borrow it, I may find an alternative way to exit that particular loan and bring in his own innovative way of doing it. I think is a plus for the incoming guy. But as for the current government, when you do not have a robust, what I would call safety net, things you can fall back on to intervene when you need to intervene, you are constrained in the short term to borrow. That's what you can do. What can you do? You can't sell assets in this short period and realize the money. You can't. What can you do? Unless you can go and find maybe like 8 of the accountant generals who are said to have taken 100 billion. If you can find 8 of them and recover 100 billion from them, you will finance this supplementary budget comfortably.
Well, you first of all need to recover the one that because that's the elephant in the room that nobody seems to be paying attention to.
Correct.
But now that debt is a concern, or it seems to be a concern, the next thing that we should be talking about is how we can increase revenue. And I think at this point, Nigerians are tired of hearing about, we're moving away from oil or diversifying the economy. It has been overplayed.
Correct.
And we should be thinking about ways that we can plug leakages. One of the things that has been a huge leakage, and I'm going to also talk about budget performance, but one of the things we can use, that has been seen as a huge leakage is oil subsidy.
Correct.
Nigeria currently is doing more than 200 billion naira every month just subsidizing, petroleum products, for its consumers, because we do not have a specific amount or an exact amount that we're sure that Nigerians consume every day. Petrol that is consumed every, sometimes 30 million liters, sometimes 100 million liters. It's chaotic.
Correct.
So I want your response to how some of this can be sorted out if we want to save our economy sometime in the future.
We need to stop dancing around the matter of fuel subsidy. We need to deal with it. What we have been doing since the military regime is dance around it and walk away, dance around it and walk away. So the people who are profiteering from fuel subsidy have been the one really enjoying it. They will be the one to go out there and tell you how it is benefiting everybody and we cannot remove it. It's the only thing that we're getting from government. All those things are stories. So we need a government that can confront it. However, there are genuine concerns from the people. When you take this away from us, what are you going to replace it with? Can we be sure that the savings from taking away the subsidy will be properly invested such that when we feel a pinch here, there's a comfort coming from another side? That is what the people are not really sure of. And it is the duty of government to be able to present that logically and execute it as well.
If we take it away,
yes,
in the interest of time, because we have a couple of things to also mention or to speak about, if we take it away, would it, encourage the Nigerian government to at least be clear with Nigerians how many liters of petrol is consumed by this country every day?
It's a choice that we have not told Nigerians how much we consume. Is a choice, because when you leave those kind of things flying in the air, it creates a room for people who want to steal, who want to plunder the system, to be able to do it when you don't even know how much you're consuming. Is it possible for us to know how much we're consuming? The answer is yes. If we want to, we can do it. That we don't know it is a deliberate action. So when you get to that point where you want to deal with this matter, we will determine how much we consume in actuality.
And we'll be true to ourselves.
And we'll be true to ourselves. Because the honesty is also part of what is very important in dealing with fuel subsidy.
Now let's talk about budget performance. We're talking 17 plus trillion naira. The 2023 budget also, is somewhere around that range or even more. One thing that we don't get to question really, ever as a people is the performance of the previous year's budget. So I want you to share your thoughts on 2021, 2022, and how you would assess the performance of those budgets.
It may not be 100% correct to say that we don't talk about it, because at every budget presentation, the minister or the president or whoever is presenting will first of all talk about the budget performance of the previous period. And then he goes into the current period. So that information is, but there are a few flaws here and there about what we call budget performance. I'll give you an example. In capital budget performance, what is regarded as performance is that I budgeted 1,000, I have released 750. Therefore, that is 75% performance. That is not performance. It is what that money has been released for. Has it been executed? Are we at 75% completion of that? Is what performance should be. So we must be able to migrate away from the amount of cash we release to a project to being able to know how much is the performance. So you get to the field today, how much of that project has actually been done. This thing that was launched, I think yesterday, one eye,
Yes,
whatever.
yes, I saw that.
Hopefully
Yes.
that can help as well, because the citizens will now have to participate in monitoring the projects that are in their own environment.
Okay. Now, quickly, before we, in the interest of time, let's now talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria, having a rethink, about the maximum withdrawals for individuals and, of course, corporate organizations from 100,000 to 500,000, and, of course, to 5 million for corporate organizations. The narrative is that they were put under pressure and they had to eventually, make those adjustments. But one thing that, you mentioned earlier was the Central Bank of Nigeria still has not been exactly clear with Nigerians why they made those changes at first. And so we can then assess whether these readjustments will affect the reasons behind, those things. Because first of all, they said, people made insinuations about the elections, about inflation, about trying to, reduce the amount of money that is in circulation and whatnot. So let's get your thoughts on this reversal of policy.
Okay, I think ab initio, there is a formal official reason for it, but it also appears there is an informal, unofficial, undeclared reason, which is the vote buying side of things.
Yes.
But on the former side of things, there's a flaw, there's a challenge to the way that policy was. And that has to do with the fact that it could possibly clash with the financial inclusion initiative of the CBN. So under the financial inclusion, you have this agency banking, they're out there, and most of them, they actually make more money paying than receiving. So if you say that they are individuals,
yes.
If you say they cannot do more than 100,000, cannot withdraw more than 100,000 naira in a week, 5 transactions of 20,000 naira each. That's it, they can close shop. It might be discouraging for them, except for those who have, a lot of deposit activities and can remain afloat. Most of them might just drop your POS for you and go and take Okada or Marwa and be riding. And that would defeat another very important objective of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So that flawed part of the policy, there's nothing wrong about revisiting it. And what the revision will have done now is that 100,000 has become 500,000. The capacity of that guy is now 5 times what it was under the previous policy. 500,000 naira will still not meet the kind of outlook that the politicians will want. What we must avoid by all means is to allow the politicians to hijack this policy and run with it, because eventually we'll be throwing the baby away with the bathwater.
Final question. Please do this in 20 seconds. Do you think the invite by the National Assembly and I saw a report about, the
terrorism financing.
Exactly. Do you think any of that played a role with this?
I don't think it was blackmailed into it. I think it was a genuine revision. But at the same time, it will have met some of the concerns of certain people. So there are ways you walk on these delicate lines sometimes, and you can scat through.
Gbolahan Olojede, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Great speaking with you.